Welcome to the Shootin' Show. Stand by for shots fired.
Hello, I'm Johnny Rowland, and welcome again to this week's Shootin' Show. I'm sure a lot of you have heard on the news by now we've had an ice storm in our area, and in fact, welcome to our backyard. This is a natural disaster that we, truthfully here in northwest Louisiana, don't know a whole heck of a lot about. But believe me, we know a lot more than we did. I'm going to put down this MAK in a few minutes and trade it for a chainsaw. We're having literally cut our way out of here, and trust me on this one, there is a point to this. But you can see the fantastic amount of devastation. In fact, our yard here looks about like the rest of the place here, and like so many of the homes of surrounding families. It's really been a terrible natural disaster. So we're going to be months, in fact, cutting our way out of this. And the point is, for several days, we're going to show you a few other things here on the farm. One, our driveway, and some other things, damage sustained from the storm. And the point is, we couldn't get any, we couldn't even get out, but we couldn't get any sort of police assistance. We couldn't get ambulance, we couldn't get anything for several days. We're still without power as I speak here. We still don't have electrical power here on the farm. So we're going to be talking about that a little more in a few minutes. Now then, friends, you can see this is our driveway. Again, a lot of people have never seen an ice storm, and it's been about 21 years since we last had one in this area here of northwest Louisiana. But just goes to show what can happen so quickly. Wednesday night, we knew we had some icing conditions, but nobody had any idea. Like I said, obviously we can't get out our driveway, and it's going to be maybe today, hopefully if I can have enough luck with the chainsaw and climb this tree and get those big limbs. But it's just amazing, you know, nature makes us feel pretty insignificant, doesn't it? Now, friends, you can tell it's hard to believe that ice could turn a gigantic tree like this over. Tell you the truth, I was standing out here in the road clearing some more brush out of the drive here when this thing went over. To tell you the truth, I thought the world was coming to an end. But it's so amazing what can happen in just a few hours of any sort of natural disaster. You know, friends, we only showed you a small portion of the damage sustained here on the farm, and all around us it's just outrageous. You know, the National Guard was called out to prevent looting and to clear the highways, and in certain parts of the country you may think you're immune to some sort of social breakdown or a natural disaster or a riot or whatever else. But trust me on this one, none of us are immune. It's amazing what can happen with no notice, with no warning. It just happens. And if you're not prepared to take care and protect your family and yourself, well, many times there's not going to be anyone else who can do it. So this is one of the arguments that will just not hold up with the anti-gun people when they say, well, let the police worry about it. Well, friends, there are times when the police cannot get to your home, certainly a long period of time away, and it only takes seconds for a tragedy or a crime to occur. And we've got to do it ourselves. We've got to be prepared to. And that's what the Founding Fathers had in mind when they wrote the Second Amendment in the Constitution. These people had read history and all sorts of educational facilities that really did teach something then, unlike some of our modern educational facilities now. They knew how people had been for thousands of years, and they knew how people were. And friends, all we're saying is, my goodness, we need to preserve our rights as individuals, our rights as American citizens, because if we let these people in Washington and some of these local yahoos get away with taking away our firearms, well, our freedom in this country is over with. Now you say, Johnny, that's drastic. No. That's the truth, and that's what is going to happen, because these people will stop and settle for nothing less than a total socialist America. Now that's what they want. Well, speaking of power outages, we lost, of course, everything in the freezers. We still don't have electricity out here on the farm, and we've got some eggs here. Let's scramble some eggs with our 870 Remington and see what this looks like. Well, that's pretty fun. We got more eggs. Let's do it again. Friends, today we're going to look at a real interesting pistol, certainly interesting to me, and a lot of us that like this particular cartridge. This is a 10 millimeter Smith & Wesson. This is a model 1006. Now, they have made several different models of this basic pistol design. They made the decock model without a safety. This particular gun has an ambidextrous safety, one on each side. And of course, on the Smith & Wesson pistols, when the gun is cocked, you apply the safety and it automatically decocks itself. Other models have a decocker here on the side of the gun in approximation to the magazine release. And these are some of the nicest made pistols I think that anyone has. Smith & Wesson is really doing a nice job on their semi-automatic guns. This one is, of course, in stainless steel. Very sturdy, very strong, very ruggedly made. And you can see in comparison to our 45 ACP government model, the two guns are similar in size. Now, the impression is that the 1006 is a slightly larger gun than our 1991 A1 Colt. And it very well may be just a little bit larger. The frame is a little longer on the 10 millimeter Smith & Wesson. The magazine is considerably longer. And let me mention, the magazine is a single stack, but it holds 9 of the full power 10 millimeters in the magazine and 1 in the chamber for a total of 10. Now, friends, I tell you what, this is no, shall we say, this is not an impotent package, because it is. The full charge 10 millimeter is one of my favorite automatic or semi-automatic pistol cartridges, because it is roughly equivalent, as you can see in the picture, compared to the 40 S&W on your left, the 10 millimeter in the center, and the 41 Magnum on your right there. The three are in very similar as far as diameter goes of the bullet. The 10 millimeter was thought to be a 41 Magnum in a semi-automatic pistol. Well, that's just not true. The 41 Magnum is considerably more powerful than the 10, but I tell you what, the 10 is equal to a good, strong 357 Magnum. That's no joke, and which is certainly powered to be highly respected, absolutely. The 40 S&W was a design that a lot of people bought the 10s initially, and it had a little too much recoil. And if you've been shooting a 9 millimeter or a 38 special, yes, the 10 is going to kick. And let's watch it in my hands anyway. And we'll apply our safety and decock it. Well, if you've been shooting a 9, yeah, that has a little recoil. But if you're used to, say, the stronger loads in the 45 ACP, or you've been shooting a 357 Magnum or above revolver, you're really not going to find it objectionable. I think a lot of police officers that have been shooting their 9s on the range found the 10 to be have a good bit more recoil, but you know, it's just what you get used to. And you could see then it wasn't doing a terrible dance in my hands as compared to our 45 ACP. Well, the 10 may have a little more recoil, but not a whole heck of a lot, I don't think. So, and it is loud. Yes, I do have that hearing protection in. Anyway, the 10 is a most useful cartridge. It is a lot of power in a compact package. And as I said earlier, it's really pretty much equal to a good, strong 357 Magnum. These guns from Smith & Wesson are extremely reliable. They're among the most reliable box stock guns that anyone makes, and they're really to be applauded for that. Now, the bad news is this: these 10 millimeter Smith & Wessons are getting extremely hard to find. And if my sources are correct, I think they have gone out of production on these guns simply due to lack of demand. Now, that's terrible, because this is one of the absolute best semi-automatic pistol cartridge combinations that anybody has ever made, and due to lack of demand, they're not currently in production. Now, I think that Smith would offer more production on these guns if demand so warranted. So there are still some out there, and this is one that we very highly recommend. The FBI had an experience with this particular or shall we say, a variation or a different model of this particular gun, and they had a little difficulty with them. But I think the difficulty that the FBI experienced was due to some design change that they wanted in their particular guns. Because truthfully, we've shot a number of these 10mm Smith & Wessons for several years now, and I have never seen one that really what I would call gave a lot of trouble or was a problem gun. They've all been very consistent. Now, truthfully, these guns will shoot into, say, 3 inches or so at 25 yards. The typical semi-automatic pistol, typical now, is not going to be as accurate as, say, a typical revolver, a quality revolver, out at, say, 25 or so yards. But these are primarily combat guns, and for their intended ranges, they're certainly more than accurate enough. Now, you might hand load and work and with several different loadings for this gun and find a load that was extremely accurate, but it would just take a little work on the individual's part. And even though this is a double action semi-automatic, you can learn to shoot these guns extremely well. It does take a little more effort with the double action trigger mechanism than, say, it does on the single action Colt that we're all familiar with. It takes a little more work to get used to the first shot, the long double action trigger pull, and then transition to the single action pull. But trust me on this one, friends, these are extremely fine guns. They're not inexpensive. I think the retail on these guns, of course this one has adjustable sights, is around $700 or so. Now occasionally you'll find one cheaper than that, or I've seen some used ones that were cheaper than that, but your quality level for what you get is awfully good. These are extremely durable, and they are very robust as far as their construction. They're really nicely made guns. The grip is going to be suitable for a lot of people. Bear in mind, this is a larger pistol, but I think most people, due to the single column magazine, won't have any difficulty in getting their hand around the grip on this 1006.
Hi, I'm Bob Brown, Vietnam veteran and publisher of Soldier of Fortune magazine, described by some as the most politically incorrect magazine in the United States. Every issue we publish in-depth, provocative articles by our investigative reporters on the efforts of gun-grabbing politicians and the BATF to undermine our Second Amendment rights, and what you can do to stop them. Also on-site coverage of the government's abuse of power as occurred in the Randy Weaver tragedy and the Waco fiasco. No puff, no fluff, in-depth technical reviews of new firearms and ammo. In short, hard-hitting action articles of immediate interest to all real Americans, available from no other mainstream media. You need the other side of the story. That's why I'm offering a 1-year subscription to Soldier of Fortune for only $22. That's over a 50% saving. Also, we're going to throw in a free 67-page bonus coverage of all our Waco material that's appeared in Soldier of Fortune and how it affects you. Call our 1-800 number now.
And friends, you can call our Shootin' Show 800 number. That's 1-800-895-7916. Ask for Department SOF for Soldier of Fortune, and we'll take MasterCard or Visa, check, or money order. So call us at 1-800-895-7916. Department SOF, $22 for a year of Soldier of Fortune plus the Waco supplement. It's a great bargain, friends, for a great magazine. And let me remind you, it will take 6 to 8 weeks for your subscription to begin after you place your order. And friends, a lot of phone calls last week did not get through due to the ice storm here in the area. Our phone lines were down, the answering service of people that take our calls, their computers were down, and it was just an overall mess for a couple of days. So if you ordered last week and you couldn't get through, well, hey, give us another shot this week. The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station.
I'm proud to be an American, thank God our country's strong. But some time ago, you know what occurred to me? There's something going wrong. My granddad fought against tyranny so we could all be free. I'm afraid, my friends, his fight has passed down to you and me, down to you and me. We got people telling us what to do, don't even know our name. We're just a number on some little card, and I think that's a shame. If George and Abe could see us now, bet they'd both agree this is not exactly what they had in mind. The land of liberty, sweet land of liberty. Oh, I love to hear my Harley run. I like being free to live out my dreams, and I want to have a little fun. I want to hold on to what we've got, from sea to shining sea. I'm afraid, my friend, the fight has passed down to you and me. Oh, down to you and me. We got politicians and bureaucrats all telling us what to do. And they don't seem at all concerned about what they put us through. They tax and spend like there's no end, throw it all away. Just keep in mind there'll come a time when nobody's left to pay. Oh, nobody's left to pay. There's people that wanna lock us up just to keep us away from harm. They want a police state to give us orders, but they can get us unarmed. There's folks that say they know the truth, well, they saw it on TV. We got some boys on Capitol Hill, don't wanna have us free. No, they don't wanna have us free. My Harley run. I like being free to live out my dreams, and I want to have a little fun. I want to hold on to what we've got, from sea to shining sea. I'm afraid, my friends, the fight has passed down to you and me. Well, down to you and me. Down, down, down to you and me. Oh, down, down, down to you and me. Down, down, down. You and me. Down to you and me. Down, down, down.
My friends, you can tell the surfaces are so nicely machined on the Smith & Wesson 1006. You have the composition of some kind, I believe it's Delrin grip material. We see we have a safety on both sides. Up is off, and of course down is on safe. And when the gun is cocked, all you have to do is depress that safety, and of course it safely decocks itself. Now bear in mind, this is still a mechanical device, and we would always decock a cocked gun with it pointed in a safe direction. But these are just excellent. This is, in my opinion, certainly a lifetime type gun. The materials are so of such good quality, and it's so rugged and durable that you could be shooting this gun, if we have any gun rights left at all in a few years. You could be shooting this gun at 50 or 100 years from now if it was properly taken care of. They're that well made. You can see it has very nice 3-dot sights, and it's just easy to shoot well. A very nice package for someone that would desire, say, more power than a 45 ACP, but who would not necessarily need a Magnum revolver, or you would like, say, something equal to a .357 Magnum in a semi-automatic pistol. Well, you load the gun by putting the magazine in the base like so, and remember, pull that slide all the way to the rear and let it go. Well, let's take a shot out here at about 25 yards. We've got a water jug. We'll just take it double action and see if we can hit it. Line those 3 dots up, good firm grip, and yes. And of course now the gun is in single action. It's ready to shoot. From single action mode, we will depress our safety and decock it, and the gun's now safe. Now, friends, as I was talking about earlier, in comparison, comparing the 10 millimeter to the 45 ACP, the 2 cartridges, as you can see in the picture, are all roughly comparable in length. That's why the 10 millimeter is somewhat equivalent to a 45 size frame. In fact, the Big 10 here from Smith & Wesson is on the same frame, if I'm correct, I believe I am, as their 4506, which is a very similar gun. The only really drawback that I see to them stopping production on the 10, and of course there are several other manufacturers that are making guns for this fine cartridge. Colt is still making the Delta Elite. There are several others. I believe the Star is making a Mega Star, which ought to be a very nice gun. I haven't shot one yet, but that's a gun that I can really see with a lot of potential. It's a wide body Star. Also, Glock makes a 10 millimeter. I would think the recoil on the Glock would be more severe than on the Smith & Wesson due to its much lighter weight. But the 45 ACP is just not designed to be as high a pressure cartridge as a 10. In fact, you can hunt deer, say I would think out to 50 yards or so with a good 10 millimeter, such as our Corbon here that we're shooting today. And of course, Corbon is a synonym for high performance ammunition. And of course, you've heard me talk about them many times on our program. We're very thankful to have them as a sponsor. But before they were a sponsor, we were talking about the tremendous Corbon ammunition, because it definitely will be above the rest of the field in a lot of areas in accuracy and performance as far as bullet velocity. And my favorite load for the 10 is a 155 grain or so bullet moving at around 1,300 feet per second, which is in fact what the Corbon, in fact, says on the box there, 1,300. And we checked velocities from Corbon and from another good cartridge manufacturer, Master Cartridge Company, and they're pretty hot. Again, roughly equal to a good, strong, say a 357 Magnum with a 6-inch barrel, which is nothing to be sneezed at. Again, I would say a good 50-yard deer gun if you place your shots accurately. And if you're hunting with a handgun, well, you darn sure better place your shots accurately, or you shouldn't be out there with a handgun if you can't do it. Anyway, the 10 has all sorts of excellent capabilities, as it'd be a good backup gun for a guide if that's you like semi-automatic pistols. It really is a very versatile cartridge. You can load it down. We have some Federal target loads here, 180 grain bullet moving at about 900 or so feet per second. Very, very mild. You can get a variation of loads in the Big 10 cartridge. Personally, I think it's a lot better cartridge, say, than the 40 S&W. Now, a lot of people will disagree with that, but I like the capabilities of the 10. You can drop back and get the 40 S&W velocities, but you can go all the way on up to a 357 Magnum equality in power in a semi-automatic pistol. So personally, I'm a much bigger fan of the 10 millimeter than I am of the 40 S&W, because you just have more, you got more space there for more powder. It will do the same thing at lower pressures, say, than a 40 Smith & Wesson. Now, the guns are going to be a little bit larger in 10 millimeter. Well, I really don't see that as a problem. Here you have a total of 10 rounds in this 10, and like in the Mega Star, I think they hold, 13, 14 rounds or so. I really don't know how many it's in that ballpark. The Glock holds 14 or 15 of the full-size 10 millimeter cartridges. I really don't see, even back down here at 9 in the magazine and 1 in the chamber, 10 of the 10 millimeter with the power you've got available. Friends, I think that ought to be an awfully nice combination. Well, what we're going to do, we're going to compare it on time on multiple targets, because we are talking about primarily a defensive handgun here. We're going to compare it on our Pro Timer from Competition Electronics, and we're going to see just how long it takes on 3 targets, 6 shots, 3 targets, with our 45 ACP shooting full loads, our 10 millimeter shooting the great Corbon high performance loads, and the tremendous Wesson 357 Magnum, which I carry about half the time out here on the farm. Really a tremendous 357. So let's compare the 3 guns, the 3 calibers 357, 45 ACP, and full charge 10 millimeter on our multiple targets. Well, let's do that now. Let's see. Let's load our Big 10, pull that slide all the way to the rear, and let it go. You know the drill. Get my hearing protection in a little bit better. Let me remind you, for those new viewers to the shooting show, we never, and I mean never, shoot a gun here on the range or anywhere else that we're out casually shooting without eye protection and without hearing protection. There's no need for anyone to leave the range anywhere with injury to their eyes or their hearing. So it's just a chance we don't take, and that's something we want to impress on all new viewers and certainly new shooters. Well, let's go ahead. We're going to start with safety on in the low ready position. Turn our timer on here. Punch the button. Okay, 1.98 seconds. We have good hits here, good hits here, good hits here. Again, safety on, low ready position. Not a particularly fast day for me. All right, so less than 2 seconds, 6 shots, 3 targets, less than 2 seconds. Safety on, low ready position. All right, 1.98 seconds. Let's figure less than 2 seconds, 1.98. Same drill with our 45 ACP. Punch the start button, low ready. Okay, 1.84 seconds. Again, good hits, all 4 here. All 4, yes, indeed. As in the earlier shots with the 10. So they're all in our zone there we're trying to hit. 1.84 seconds, so I would assume that it took me about 1/10 of a second longer for the transition from double action to single action. Okay, guns on safe. Same drill with our 357 Magnum. And we're not taping our target because we'll know any holes outside our circles there will be not quite as good a hit. Same drill. Okay, my first shot was high right here, but the others are in. All right, 2.08 seconds. So we're 1/10 away. In fact, I was 1/10 of a second faster with the 10 millimeter than I was with the 357 Magnum revolver. And again, it's pretty good hits all the way around. I had one out, but not too bad a hit actually. So I was a little faster with the 45 ACP, but our power level with the Big 10 here is quite a bit higher. You're looking at about 350 foot-pounds of energy with our 45, and you're looking at about 550 or so with our full charge 10. So in effect, it sort of split the difference between the 357 Magnum revolver and the 45 ACP as far as times go. And again, you have a very powerful and potent cartridge.
The Shooting Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station. You know, friends, all of us as shooting enthusiasts should be subscribing to Shotgun News, the trading post for anything that shoots, with literally thousands and thousands of firearms bargains with 3 big issues monthly. Shotgun News, Post Office Box 669, Hastings, Nebraska. The zip code is 68902. Their phone number, area 402-463-4589. For MasterCard or Visa, subscriptions only now. Call them at 1-800-345-6923. And now, friends, we're pleased to present Jim Pate, our investigative reporter down in San Antonio, reporting on the Branch Davidian trial.
Let me tell you a little bit about the trial this week. The prosecution is going to rest probably Monday or Tuesday. Let me tell you what's going on since I talked to you. We've had a lot of testimony in the last couple of weeks. The 8-woman and 4-man jury appeared most visibly shaken by gruesome medical testimony about the final minutes of the more than 80 victims of the Branch Davidian fire, and a riveting film of that fire that claimed their lives. It ended a 51-day standoff between the apocalyptic Seventh-day Adventist sect and the increasingly impatient FBI agents. In testimony that I thought the witness was eerily cheery, Dr. Nizam Pirwani of Fort Worth, a medical examiner, gave grisly testimony about the horrible death suffered by the Branch Davidian victims, more than half of them women and children. He said 81 individual remains have so far been counted, but more may turn up as they sift through the bones. Dr. Pirwani said 43 people died from smoke inhalation or were burned to death. 2 women and a child had their skulls crushed by falling timbers as tanks demolished the building. 4 women and 4 children were buried alive as the armored vehicles crushed the walls around them. 18 people died of gunshot wounds, and 1 baby died from puncture wound. Of the 18 individual victims counted so far, Pirwani said 47 were found in a concrete wall room at the base of the building's 4-story tower. The body of 1 woman cradling the incinerated remains of an infant in her charred, withered arms. Despite government claims that these people had crowded together to willingly die, forensic investigators said victims were huddled under wet blankets in an apparent attempt to survive. The bodies of 7 women, including defendant Livingston Fagan's wife and mother, were found stacked together at the west end of a front hallway where they had been trying to claw their way through fallen debris to a trap door leading down to a buried school bus that served as a passageway to a large cellar. FBI agent R.J. Craig, who drove one of the tanks that smashed through the walls of the building and sprayed the riot control chemical CS inside, said the intent was in knocking holes in the building was to provide escape holes. Defense attorney Dan Cogdell, who sounded really sarcastic when he asked this question, asked Craig if the idea was to convince these people to come out by ramming a tank through their house. In testimony that I thought was chillingly reminiscent of the Nuremberg war crime trials after World War II, FBI agent Craig said he, quote, did not give too much thought, end quote, to the possibility of crushing women and children as he drove the tank through the walls because he was, quote, following orders, end quote. Craig's first order of the day, he testified, right off the bat, was to get gas into the hallway of the main structure and keep people from going down that hatchway and into the school bus. That testimony was in troubling contrast to an apparently misleading statement by FBI agent Jeffrey Jamar, who was in charge of the 51-day standoff. Knowing that Craig's tank had begun its mission by denying entry to the underground passageway, Jamar claimed that if Branch Davidian leader David Koresh wished those children to survive, that was one place they could have hidden safely when the fire started. Now, that would have been kind of difficult if the FBI agent had already sprayed gas down there. Prosecutors presented evidence that Koresh ordered his followers to set the fire rather than surrender. Defense attorneys contend the fire broke out in the gymnasium area after the tanks deliberately knocked down the walls in the back side of the building, known as Mount Carmel, and that the whole roof collapsed. Survivors say the fire started when gasoline lanterns were overturned and crushed by the tanks crashing through the walls. Dr. Charles Armstrong, a Texas chemist, said he found traces of 5 kinds of flammable liquids and 33 of 100 evidence samples sent him by an arson investigation team. Senior arson investigator William Cass of the Los Angeles Fire Department said experts believe 3 fires started almost simultaneously, the first in a second-floor room on the building's southeast corner, and subsequently in the chapel and dining areas. But another government witness, Dr. James Quintier, an engineer and fire expert from the University of Maryland, said time-correlated infrared video film taken by the FBI and media video indicates a 4th point of ignition, the gymnasium, which Cass never mentioned. Cass testified that the areas of the rubble chosen for investigation were selected by another arson investigator, Paul Gray of Houston, whom the government chose not to call as a witness. Gray's participation has been questioned because he worked for 8 years for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, which most of your viewers probably know are the people that started all this mess. And Gray is also married to an ATF secretary who works in the same Houston office that was running the investigation. The Grays were close friends of ATF agent Steve Willis, who was the first person to die in the shootout, and they also attended Willis's funeral. Cass said under oath that log entries by FBI observers concerning the outbreak of fire in the gym area were never provided to him by Gray, and no material samples from that part of the building were collected for analysis. U.S. Judge Walter S. Smith refused a defense request that those portions of the FBI observer logs be read to the jury. Cass said Gray was in charge of choosing which parts of the FBI logs would be made available to investigators. So, Johnny, that looks kind of suspicious. It looks like they're withholding evidence again, as they've done several times in this trial. The jury was also shown some dramatic photographs that graphically illustrated the massive damage caused by these tanks on the back of the compound where the media was not allowed to film. The entire rear end of the building was knocked down and several people were trapped. FBI agent Mike Toulouse was called. The government kept calling him a forward observer, but he admitted on cross-examination that his job was as a sniper. So if you hear a government agent say they're going to send a forward observer to your house, you know they're sending a sniper over. Toulouse pointed in photographs to flames and smoke erupting from mounds of crushed timbers and rubble after tanks smashed their way into the gymnasium and the chapel areas, knocking down walls and collapsing the roof. He acknowledged that gale force winds, which probably contributed to the fire's rapid spread, were so loud that he could not hear FBI loudspeakers through which negotiators were imploring Branch Davidians to surrender and telling them, quote, "This is not an assault." FBI agent David Johnson, a medic who treated 29-year-old defendant Renus Avram after Avram escaped from the flames, said Avram made statements implicating other Branch Davidians. I don't know who set the fire, Johnson quoted Avram as saying, but voices from downstairs said, "The fire's been lit, the fire's been lit." FBI agent John W. Morrison, a sniper positioned 300 yards from the building, described seeing a male Branch Davidian set a fire in the area where the doors had been knocked down by a tank. He said he saw the person bend over like they were pouring something, and then they lit something, and then there were some flames. But the defense attorneys on cross-examination brought out some photographs that showed the fire after it started in two different portions of the building, and they showed this to Agent Morrison and had him point out the place where he said he'd seen a person start a fire, and he had to agree that there was no fire there. Johnny, I think the prosecution is going to wrap this up in the next couple of days, and then we're going to see the defense start calling some witnesses. They're going to call their own fire experts. They're going to probably they're trying to subpoena some ATF agents. The judge, who's given them very little leeway anyway, is not going to provide them the money to get these agents here. It's been a very one-sided trial stacked in favor of the government, but the government's case has been so weak from the very beginning, and the defense attorneys have worked so hard. The defense is hanging in there, and maybe we'll see justice out of this whole thing before it's over. Folks, thanks a lot. This is Jim Pate reporting from San Antonio, Texas for Soldier of Fortune magazine and Shootin' Show.
You know, friends, just listening to Jim Pate talk, it's really frightening, the things that our own government is doing to its own citizens. Now, this is ridiculous. It is outrageous. It's also tragic. And no, I'm not holding an assault rifle. This is a basic old Colt Sporter. Now, friends, there are those in Washington that would mislead so many of our American citizens about guns like this, about semi-automatic pistols like this Smith & Wesson. Friends, something has got to be done, because we're in danger not only of losing our rights to own guns. You heard me say earlier in the program, we're in danger of losing everything. You know, the Second Amendment is the very foundation that keeps all the other amendments, for that matter, our Constitution, in place. You know, friends, when the government does not trust us, the honest and decent citizen, to have firearms, we don't trust the government. We shouldn't. And something has got to be done. Well, here's something that you can do. You can join the Shootin' Show Gun Club today. Call us at 1-800-895-7916. We have a $25 annual membership fee. You can call us and join. We can take MasterCard or Visa. We'll take checks or money orders, whatever you can do. If you just want information, we'll be happy to send you our aims and bylaws for what our club does and is going to be doing. Friends, we need your help because we have a tremendous job ahead of us, because these people in Washington, see, they're well funded and they're well fed, and they're not going to stop. We've got to stop them. You and I, the Shootin' Show Gun Club, all decent and honest gun-owning American citizens. We've got to do it. So please, join the Shootin' Show Gun Club today. Well, friends, if you're in the market for a high-performance, high-powered handgun and you like semi-automatic pistols, I think that the Smith & Wesson 1006, that series of guns in 10 millimeter, is as good a gun as money can buy. Now, that's my own personal opinion. Of course, I've been shooting these guns for several years and have had excellent results with all of the models we've come across. They are powerful. They're a little bit hard to find now, and if demand were great enough, I think Smith & Wesson would possibly go back in production on these guns. I don't know, but they're still out there. So if that's what you'd like, well, and the Brady bill is not in effect just yet, go ahead now and buy you a Smith & Wesson 10 millimeter. Why not? You have the power from the mild target loads to the for-real core bonds.
Did you ever try to throw an axe, throw a tomahawk, or throw a knife? Well, now you can with AccuBlade's free video on the art of throwing weapons, free with any axe, tomahawk, or knife order. All AccuBlade products are made by hand in the USA. Please allow 4 to 6 weeks delivery.
Now, friends, supplies are limited, so you have to specify whether you want the axe, the tomahawk, or the knife. Send $34.95 plus $5 shipping and handling, or $84.95 plus $7 shipping and handling for all three. Now, you send a check or money order to AccuBlade, Box 206, Lockport, Illinois. That zip code is 60441. Or if you'd like, you can charge it to your Visa or MasterCard by calling us at 1-800-895-7916. Ask for Department AccuBlade, and we'll be happy to put that on your credit card for you.
You know, kids always will be kids, getting into things they shouldn't, playing make-believe, and sometimes finding things on their own. But kids, if you ever find a gun, stop right there. Don't touch the gun and leave right away to tell your mom, dad, or another adult. And folks, if you have a gun in your home, be absolutely sure that it's stored in a safe and secure location. Because remember, kids will be kids. This message is a public service of this station and the National Shooting Sports Foundation.
The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station. And now, friends, we're very pleased to present Lieutenant Colonel Art Alphin, retired from West Point. That is because for many years Art was an instructor at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. In fact, on these programs, that's why you'll see him in BDUs. But Art is one of the most knowledgeable people about firearms that I have ever met, and he's, of course, a very popular figure on this program. For information on Art's company, which is the great A-Square Company, they build some of the finest high-powered rifles and ammunition available in the world. Give them a call at area 502-255-7456.
This painting graphically illustrates the point that for all its strengths, the .58 caliber rifled musket did not have a volume of fire that was compatible with its accuracy. If soldiers were extended in any sort of skirmish line, their massed volume of fire was so low that they might well be overrun. This problem could in some measure be solved with a breech-loading weapon. The U.S. Indian Wars provide some perfect examples of the changes wrought by the breech loader when it replaced the muzzle-loading rifled musket. It would perhaps be profitable to start with the war between the states. Many historians are prone to criticize the decision-makers in the war between the states as being stupid. The historians say that machine guns and repeating rifles were available. Anyone should have seen their superiority and should have adopted them immediately. Such historians are technical illiterates. The weapons of the war between the states were 19th century weapons and were in no way equivalent to anything we conceive of in the 20th century. For example, to characterize a Gatling gun as a machine gun is the grossest possible twisting of the term. The same is true of the breech-loading and repeating rifles and carbines of the war between the states era. Though they had a greater volume of fire than the rifled musket, those breech loaders and repeaters that did actually work, and there were few of those, suffered severe limitations in combat range. Further, at any one time, there were at least 15 or 20 competing designs of breech loaders and repeaters being shown to the Army. Each one was totally different in design and function and took a completely different type and caliber of ammunition. However, each one had at least one salesman who could put on a demonstration proving his to be better than the others. Normally that salesman had more than a little political clout from some fellow in Congress. Regardless of what the salesman showed, cartridge cases and rifle designs were in their infancy and were not up to the claims made for them. When issued in the field, breech loaders like the Joslin were discarded immediately, for they were not worth carrying. Lastly, you should understand that the manufacturing plants, though much better in the North than in the South, were still not capable of producing breech loaders or repeaters in the necessary millions of copies, nor ammunition for them in the required billions of rounds. Given these limitations in manufacturing, the short combat range, the technical infancy and unreliability of the breech loaders and the cartridge cases, there were very good reasons for retaining the .58 caliber rifled musket as the primary shoulder weapon during the war. By 1866, however, things were changing. The attention that the war focused on the problem of breech loaders began to result in some very sound designs. Further, cartridge cases were rapidly improving, and the industrial capacity of the North found that post-war demand was more in line with what they could produce. Into this arena stepped Mr. Erskine Allen, a toolmaker at the Springfield Armory. He patented and showed to the Army his method of converting the Springfield rifled musket into a breech loader. His basic idea was to cut out the breech area of the rifled musket. The resulting trough was filled with a breech block that pivoted upwards like a trap door. After discharge, the hammer was cocked, the lock released, and the breech raised. This extracted and ejected the old cartridge. The shooter then thumbed a new cartridge into the chamber, closed the breech, and was ready to fire. The first Allen conversion was chambered for a metallic cartridge which roughly duplicated the ballistics of the .58 caliber rifled musket. By 1866, his second model conversion, which included relining the barrel to accept a .50 caliber center fire cartridge, was deemed suitable for general military use. I should emphasize here that none of this was possible without a practical center fire cartridge case. The case held powder, bullet, and primer in one package. The cartridge case also served double duty by expanding against the chamber on discharge and sealing the powder gases in the barrel. This cartridge case is critical. The breech loader held the cartridge case, and the case sealed the gases. Back to Mr. Allen's rifle, it was adopted in July of 1866 and put into immediate production. By January of 1867, the first shipments of these rifles were on their way west. These rifles arrived on the frontier none too soon. Serious social discussions with the Sioux Indians were reaching a fever pitch along the Bozeman Trail in Wyoming and Montana during the period 1866 and 67. The Fetterman Massacre had just occurred, and the Army, with its post-war reductions in manpower, was having trouble holding on. The two major forts in the area, Fort Phil Kearny and Fort C.F. Smith, were adequately garrisoned and suffered no major risk of being directly overrun, but their wood-cutting and hay and water-gathering parties were in considerable danger. When confronted with isolated parties of whites, Indian tactics were simple. They attempted to close the range as much as possible, preferably by ruse or surprise. When it was time to join battle, they normally had one or two warriors expose themselves as firing dummies. As soon as the first volley was fired by the whites, the remaining Indians would charge pell-mell, knowing that at worst, the whites with muzzle loaders could fire one more volley before being overrun. In August of 1867, the Indians tried this at a hayfield outside Fort C.F. Smith and in a wood-cutting area outside Fort Phil Kearny. In both cases, they met with a large surprise as they suffered volley after volley in rapid succession. A comparison of what they expected and what they got looks like this. Let's go to the chart. We list the combat range of the breech loader as being slightly better than the rifled musket because of the breech loader's higher velocity and better ballistic coefficient. Its volume of fire is easily double that of the rifled musket. As the range decreased and the need for adjusting sights or attaining a good sight picture consequently decreased, a good soldier with a breech loader could increase this rate of fire. It was not uncommon at close ranges for a breech loader to put out 9 or even 10 rounds a minute. This increase in volume is such that it paid the soldier to manipulate his weapon and continue to fire as the enemy closed, rather than give up firing and fix bayonets for a final contest. Our example pointed this out well. The breech loader had gotten off 7 rounds in the same period that the muzzle loader had fired 2 and was midway through the loading cycle of his 3rd round. The breech loader could continue to fire while the soldier armed with the muzzle loader had no choice but to fix bayonets. Erskine Allen's design would go through many modifications. Starting in 1873, it would be newly manufactured in .45-70 caliber as the model 1873 Springfield. All told, over 650,000 Allen rifles would be made. Erskine Allen won the wagon box fight and helped open the trails west.
Now, friends, you need to get a pencil. You need to pay attention because I'm holding some of the finest ammunition that money can buy at any price. And, of course, this blue and white box here is Corbon high-performance, high-velocity, high-yield ammunition. You know, we've used this for a long time on the program. Even before they were a sponsor of ours, we still shot Corbon ammunition if we wanted the absolute best performance out of any particular handgun or long gun. They make a number of different types of ammunition for hunting, for self-defense. They also have a new line for obsolete calibers, things that have been almost impossible to find in the past. They're offering that now. For information on Corbon ammunition, give them a call at 1-800-626-7266. Again, 1-800-626-7266. Trust me on this one, friends. This is as good as it gets. And now let's watch some NRA action shooting, courtesy of Mail Order Video, and their number is 800-942-8273, and I think you're going to enjoy this.
Bruce Pyatt will go on to finish the NRA Bianchi Cup with 1,916 points and 158 X's, which placed him 8th overall in the competition. In fact, the little history on that, he cleans the practical, he'll clean the barricades here at this event, he cleans the plates, and he drops 4 points on the moving target. Bruce Pyatt, 8th place overall in the 1992 NRA Bianchi Cup. Now, here's Brian Enos. You can see Brian is without his Smith & Wesson team shirt. He recently got laid off or cut by the team Smith & Wesson, and not anything to do with his shooting ability, really more of a budgetary cut. Enos won this event in 1983. He was the man who pioneered the use of revolvers here at the Bianchi Cup competition.
Well, friends, it's happened again. We've run out of time for today's show, but we're looking forward to the next time we see you on another shooting show. Let me remind you, please, if you contact any of our sponsors that you've seen on our program, please tell them that you saw it on the shooting show. It'll certainly help all of us. And we're in the planning stages now for our clinics, our fun gun days around the country. If you have a gun club in your particular region and you'd like to sponsor and assist us on our fun gun day, please get in touch with us here at the show. Until next time, we'll see you on another shooting show.